Hello, I'm Ros Atkins. Welcome to Outside Source. The war in Ukraine is entering its third month, with Russia hitting railway stations with missile attacks. 5 stations were hit in the centre and west of Ukraine. We'll update you on that. Also, some of the US's top officials have been in Kiev to show their support. The US Defence Secretary says simply defending against Russian aggression may not be enough.
We want to see Russia weakened to the degree that it can't do the kinds of things that it has done in invading Ukraine.
Emmanuel Macron will be president of France for another 5 years. He convincingly beat Marine Le Pen in the second round of the election. We'll look at his policy priorities, having won a second term. And we've got to talk about Elon Musk. He's closing in on Twitter. Reports say the company's board may be about to accept his offer to buy the whole thing. Well, let's begin in Ukraine. Russia has continued aerial attacks on a number of its cities, and more civilians are known to have died. Also, 5 railway stations have been targeted in eastern and central Ukraine. What a story. We'll watch out for confirmation of that. James Clayton in San Francisco, thank you very much indeed. That wraps up this first half of Outside Source. I'll see you in a couple of minutes' time here in the BBC Newsroom. I'm Ros Atkins. Welcome back to Outside Source. The war in Ukraine is entering its third month, and Russia has been targeting railway stations in the centre and the west of Ukraine. 5 stations were struck in the last 24 hours. Some of America's most senior officials have been in Kiev to show their support. The US Defence Secretary says simply defending against Russian aggression may no longer be enough.
We want to see Russia weakened to the degree that it can't do the kinds of things that it has done in invading Ukraine.
In the UK, there's been a big backlash to this article in the Mail on Sunday, which accused Labour's deputy leader of using her legs to distract the Prime Minister. Boris Johnson had this to say.
I thought it was the most appalling load of a sexist, misogynist tripe.
Well, there are calls for the journalist who wrote that story to have his pass to Parliament retracted. We'll discuss that is the correct response. Also in this half hour, we'll talk about Johnny Depp. He's been back in the witness stand in the trial against his ex-wife Amber Heard. We'll be live in Virginia with the latest. Well, let's turn back to the war in Ukraine, and we're going to focus on Russia's offensive in the eastern part of the country. We know the Donbass region is a particular focus for the Russians at the moment. Remember, some of it was already under the control of separatists with Russia's backing, but there's been fighting between pro-Russia separatists and Ukrainian forces, not just in the last weekend. Now, in a few minutes' time here on the programme, we're going to talk about what's happening in China. These are big queues at checkouts in Beijing. People are worried their city could be next for a COVID lockdown as cases there rise. I'm Ros Atkins. We're here in the BBC Newsroom. This is Outside Source, and our lead story comes from Ukraine, where Russia has been targeting a number of train stations in the centre and the west of the country. Now let's turn to the trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. It's taking place in Fairfax, Virginia. It's into its second week. The Hollywood actor is suing his former wife for an article she wrote in which she described herself as a victim of domestic violence. So far, the testimony has laid bare their violent fights, drug use and vicious words. On Monday, the court was played audio recordings of the couple's arguments. Just in the last few seconds, confirmation has come through. Elon Musk is buying Twitter. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. I'm Ros Atkins, this is Outside Source. The war in Ukraine is entering its third month. We'll update you on that, but we're also going to talk about Twitter because in the last few minutes, first of all, shares were suspended in the trading of Twitter, and then it was confirmed the world's richest man, Elon Musk, is now the owner of Twitter. We'll bring you further coverage of that. We'll also turn to Ukraine. 5 train stations have been hit by Russian missiles in the centre and the west of the country. Meanwhile, some of the most senior officials from the Biden administration have been in Kiev to show their support. The US Defense Secretary says simply defending against Russian aggression may not be enough.
We want to see Russia weakened to the degree that it can't do the kinds of things that it has done in invading Ukraine.
Emmanuel Macron will be president of France for another 5 years. He easily beat Marine Le Pen in the second round of the presidential election. We'll look through what his policy objectives are. So we have a developing story from the US. Twitter has confirmed that Elon Musk, the world's richest man, has bought the whole thing. Twitter's gone private. Elon Musk has bought all of the company for $44 billion. Trading in Twitter shares had been halted just a few moments. Now, stay with me here in the BBC newsroom with Outside Source. In a few minutes, we'll update you on the situation in Ukraine. Russia's been targeting train stations. We'll hear from one of our correspondents on the reasons why. Now, there have been long queues at supermarkets in Beijing as fears rise that it could be the next Chinese city to enter a lockdown. Steve McDonald has more. Let's bring you up to date on the war in Ukraine. Russia has continued aerial attacks on a number of cities. We know more civilians have been killed, and 5 railway stations were attacked in the east and centre of the country. Thanks to Joe for that. Just a quick reminder of our top story, a developing story in the last half an hour or so. It's been confirmed that the Twitter board has accepted Elon Musk's offer. He is paying over $40 billion to take Twitter private. He will be in complete control. All of those ideas he's been floating in the last couple of months on how he can change Twitter, how he can make more of it. Well, now he's going to get the chance. He is buying the company. One question a lot of people are asking is, with all this emphasis on free speech, will President Trump be allowed back onto Twitter? Remember, Twitter removed him just in the last few days of his presidency. Well, Donald Trump has said he does not want to go back on Twitter, even if Elon Musk were to allow it. That is one of many, many questions facing Twitter and Elon Musk as they begin their working relationship. We'll keep a close eye on it, of course. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Hello, here are the latest weather prospects for Europe. High pressure holds firm up to the northwest of the continent.